What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. Now, the other day I posted my first video in a while on the subreddit r/AskReddit, where people ask questions and Redditors answer them. Now, I really enjoyed that video and you guys seem to love it as well, so today I thought let's do another one. So let's find out the internet's answers to the question, what is the scariest thing that you have ever encountered while home alone? I was babysitting a family that I was unfamiliar with. My parents knew them and suggested me when they needed a babysitter, and as I liked having money, I accepted. The kid goes to bed and I kill time as one does before smartphones are a thing by reading, I think? Maybe doing homework, but that seems unlikely. Anyways, I start to hear speaking from another room. Not just speaking, but this low, almost demonic voice speaking to another one. I'm not a religious sort, but when you realize that no, you're not just hearing things, there's definitely a voice, it's more than a little creepy. Not knowing what was going on, I slowly crept up to the doorway of the sitting room, then peered around the corner. Frickin' Furbies, talking to each other, at night, in the dark. Furbies suck. I was maybe 11 or 12, and was home alone one winter day. The desktop computer I was using shared a wall with our unheated garage. The house was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. All of a sudden, this boom erupted from the garage that shook the wall. It honestly sounded like a bomb went off. 20 minutes later, after hiding behind the couch and getting my heart rate down, I finally went to inspect. A 2-liter Sprite bottle had frozen and exploded off the shelf. I was probably about 12, newly allowed to be home alone for a couple of hours over the summer. A man was walking through my fenced-in backyard, walked right onto my deck to the back window. My dog was going nuts, barking with her hair standing up. I had no way out of the house or to the phone without this man seeing me in the window. So, I'm hiding behind the couch, waiting for him to break in, when I see him exit my yard through the gate. I immediately call my mum, almost in tears, and she said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you the gas meter guy was coming." Of course, the gas meter is right next to the window my brother and I always used to break into our own house when we forgot our keys. My dog was the only badass that day. I mean, to be fair, I don't really blame you if you're 12 years old and your mum hasn't told you that a random man is going to go to your house. Yeah, I'd be scared as well. My husband was having a dude's weekend and I was home alone with our kid. The downstairs neighbours were fighting, nothing new there, when all of a sudden I heard her scream, "Help me! Please, God, someone help me!" So loud, I knew she had run out the kitchen into the back stairwell. She was crying and screaming, their baby was screaming, then there were thumps and more yelling. I'd already called 911, and while they were getting my information, everything went silent down there. The baby suddenly stopped. Everything was quiet. I told them to hurry. The police arrived and I had to let them in the building. So much for an anonymous report, and they pounded on the downstairs door for a while with no answer. They tried calling the landlord to get permission to break down the door, but one officer came up to ask me if there was another way in. I showed them the back stairwell and said they were unlikely to have bothered locking the kitchen door. They hadn't, and the officers got in, nobody home. They came back and asked me again what I'd heard, and another officer hung back. The family was finally found in the basement. He said, the father that is, they'd all been down there doing laundry and hadn't heard the police knocking. That, though, is bull. People down the block could hear them threatening to break down the door. We'd drawn quite a crowd. The woman, the wife, insisted that everything was fine and that she and the baby were safe, and sent the police on their way. Nothing they can do if she insists that she's safe. I couldn't sleep all night, and they were extra cold to us after that. A few months later, I answered the door to 2 police officers responding to a report of DV. The downstairs neighbours claimed they'd heard us screaming and thumping, and then saw my husband jump in his car and speed away. I was home alone, still in my nightgown. They could see lots of skin and no visible marks, and my husband had been out of the country on business for 3 days. My neighbours actually got in trouble for the false report and moved out later that month. I really hope she eventually left him. Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to jump to conclusions or anything, but it seems pretty clear to me that, you know, some sort of abuse is going on there, and the woman, for whatever reason, is just trying to cover it up. I don't really know why, but maybe she's kind of trapped. Yeah, I really hope she leaves him soon. I was taking a nap in my apartment under blankets in my bed when I hear the door open. Thinking it's my husband, I ignore it, but about 5 minutes later, I hear several female voices. I'm thinking I'm dreaming, so again, I ignore it. But the voices get louder, and suddenly my bedroom door opens. I freak out and bolt upright in bed. 3 women were in my apartment, 2 young, 1 older. I shriek, they run out of my apartment. It turned out that the management company showed the wrong apartment available for rent that day. I got an apology and a bouquet of flowers. Wow, you're lucky because that sounds terrifying. We lived in a maisonette in London. We lived upstairs and a man was downstairs. He came banging at our door one day, screaming that his flat was being flooded from our bathroom and to let him in. Well, I was 14 and my bro 13. Mum was out. He came in, went into the bathroom and did something. I don't know what. He was an adult and we trusted him. Well, Mum called the council out and there had never been a leak. No watermarks or anything. So Mum told us not to let him in again. Next time Mum went out, he came banging at the door again and we told him what Mum said. He went crazy. Let me frickin' in! Let me frickin' in! All the while banging the F out of the door. God knows what he wanted. Scary stuff. Yeah, that really is terrifying. I really think you should get your bathroom checked out. Probably put a hidden camera in there or something. Jesus, maybe even had to go and fix it when it stopped working. I don't know. That actually is terrifying. I was watching TV alone like I do almost all the time, and a cat jumped off on my lap. I've not got a freaking cat, okay? Did you ever figure out where the cat came from? Yeah, it was a buddy's cat from across town. It was named Regis Philbin, rest in peace. We don't know how it got into my house because every window and door had been closed since I got home hours earlier and my buddy hadn't been to my house in months. Well, all I'd say to that is cats do not abide by the laws of nature. I was woken from a deep sleep by the most horrifying high-pitched howling noise. We lived deep in a wooded area and I was familiar with sounds like foxes barking or even fisher cats screaming. But this was eerie and didn't sound like an animal. Then it came from the other side of the house, but there was no sound of anything walking. You know how your mind isn't really logical when you first wake? Well, I was convinced it was some terrible, otherworldly creature. In the morning, I checked some online recordings of sounds to figure it out. It turned out to be a tiny, harmless screech owl. The little guy can make some demonic sounds though. Yeah, to be honest, I see similarities of that in my life. I live in London and there are loads of foxes everywhere and they make the most horrific sounds late at night, but honestly, you kind of get used to it. I would be surprised though, I'd be interested to put someone in my perspective for one day, one night, and hear some of these screams that these foxes make and see their reaction. Probably be quite funny, I'm not gonna lie. Just moved in to our brand new home. My husband goes out to pick up dinner. I'm just setting up our TV, and all of a sudden, a man comes down the flipping stairs. I scream at the top of my lungs and run for the front door. He screams at the same time. Thankfully, the neighbors next door were outside. I squeak out that there is a strange man in my house. He comes out of my house, and turns out he works for the development and had been fixing an upstairs bathroom. My husband forgot to tell me he was there. Again, I've got a pretty similar story to this, to be honest. When I was at uni, I rented a house for some of my friends, and one day I wake up, no one else is in the house, I think they're all at uni, they had early starts or whatever, and I go into the kitchen. Funnily enough, there's a random man in there that I don't know. I wasn't really that scared, to be fair. I just said, "Oh, hello mate, who are you?" And he said, yes, the landlord has asked me to come, I'm fixing the boiler. So that was that. Pretty interesting stuff. A tree branch crashed through my window when I was home alone playing Xbox. I've always thought I'd be prepared for like an intruder or something, but if that was a dude that just did that SWAT rope swing through my window, he would have had enough time to walk over to me, grab a gun from my hand, load it, and shoot me before I figured what the F went on. I was like one of those goats that faint when you scream at them. That's quite funny, because you have these plans in your head of how you'd react if an intruder was to come in. But I guess this guy just sat there for a long time thinking, what the heck is going on? Just, motionless. I was super high cleaning the apartment one day, probably around 1 o'clock. So the music was up, I was in my zone. Then someone started slamming on the door. It kept going. I stopped the music, thinking that maybe it was just a neighbor who wanted the music turned down. I didn't feel like answering the door, because 1, I'd smoked a frick ton of weed, so was in no place to, and 2, well, of course, COVID. I stopped the music, went quiet, but the aggressive knocking did not stop. So I looked through the peephole. There was a smaller girl a bit bigger than me in stature. I've never seen her before, and I live in a complex with 6 units, so I know what my neighbors look like. But she keeps knocking. Being stupid, I opened the door. She just stared, asked where John was. I told her I don't know, there's no John here. She just stood and stared at me, definitely on something. I tell her to try down the hall, since I think there might be one that lives down there. I slowly go to close the door, and she legit shoves her foot in the crack and starts to shove. So I start to struggle back. We are both actually wrestling with the door. I just go, "What? Can I help you? I'm trying to close the door." She stops and relents a bit and does some weird eye stuff and goes, "Oh, okay," then walks off. I locked and bolted that effort real quick. But yeah, don't open doors to strangers. I was 11 and home alone. I got out of the shower to discover my house had been broken into. A teen from down the street and his sister were in the living room ransacking the place. My dad kept one of those glass door gun cabinets at the end of the hall by the bedroom door. I took out the first gun I could grab and yelled at them. The dude turned around with a knife, but dropped and ran when he saw the rifle. The coward shoved his sister down as he bolted back out the door. The girl stayed on the ground screaming as I called the cops. They both got arrested over a pocket full of change the guy had shoved in his hoodie. This was in the 90s in Texas, and my mum was more annoyed about the broken door and them touching her change jar than anything else. And finally, I had a massive tub of Lego fall over while I was eating downstairs. I kid you not, it sounded like somebody went through the window. I was frozen on the spot, thinking I was going to be killed or kidnapped or something. An hour and a bit passed, and I thought they must have left. I slowly went around the house looking for evidence of a break-in. Then I saw the Lego all over the floor. And there we go, guys. That is going to do it for this episode of r/AskReddit. Again, if you did enjoy it, let me know down in the comments below. Drop a like on this video because, yeah, I thoroughly enjoy, covering a new subreddit and covering new subreddits in general. So, yeah, if you want to see more from this subreddit in particular, please let me know. And, it's the easiest way. If you like it, let me know down below and I'll do more of it. Pretty simple stuff. Yeah, if you want to see the video from the other day that I mentioned in the intro, and that is on screen right there. It's a cracker of a video. I mean, look at it. What an interesting thumbnail. What an interesting title. Give it a watch. If you are new around here, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys all tomorrow with a brand new video.